Hi everyone, so today I have swatches of my fairest, palest, lightest, whatever you want to call it, concealers. I did a couple of concealer videos here recently, but they were not that great and the lighting was kind of funky, and I wanted to just get all the really fair shades together, and I have acquired a good number of shades since I did that video. More very fair concealers have been coming out. I feel like the kind of deluge of very fair foundations happened, and the concealers have been a little bit slower to catch up, but I feel like they're starting to come along, and it's great because if you have a very fair foundation but you can't find a concealer that's at least as light as the foundation, what are you gonna do? So I do also have swatches of a couple white concealers, and yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead, get into the swatches. We can talk about formulas and how they wear and coverage and all that good stuff. So let's just look at the swatches first. So this is a foundation, and the first and last swatches are foundation, the rest are concealer. I just wanted to give you a reference point of some very fair foundation shades, how concealers compared to the foundation. Smashbox Studio Skin Foundation in 0.1, Tarte Shape Tape in Fair, which dries a lot darker than it is when it's wet. Tarte Shape Tape in Porcelain Beige, which does not dry nearly as dark as Fair does. Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer in Chantilly. MAC Studio Fix Concealer in NC10. I wish this is what Studio Fix Foundation in NC5 looked like, because I could probably wear that. It Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye in Light. They do have a new shade in this that may or may not be lighter. It says, I think, the same lightness but with a different undertone. I have not looked at it though. I've just seen the product, I have not swatched it. Makeup Forever Ultra HD in Y21. Cover FX Power Play Concealer in Fair 1, I think it's called. ColourPop No Filter Concealer in Fair 02. ColourPop No Filter Concealer in Fair 06. Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in C 0.5. Nyx HD Concealer in Alabaster, which is shockingly orange. Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in C0 White. BH, what's this called? Total Coverage Concealer in White. Sephora Gel Serum in Bavarian Cream. And this is Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte Foundation in 100. And I will, as always, have a blog post with all of these swatches so that you can look at it at your leisure. All right, now these are a lot more dry. You can see Shape Tape here. Oh, it's quite a bit darker than everything else now. The Nyx, still orange. And yeah. But the Porcelain Beige here, quite a bit brighter than Fair, which is nice. It stays a little bit more true to the color that it starts out as, which I appreciate. And so you can see the lightest one, other than the whites, is the ColourPop. It continues to be, again, also quite true to the color that it starts out as, which I appreciate. You can see the ones that just do not dry. The It Cosmetics here is like wet, straight up wet. Everything else more or less has some amount of dry down, except for the It Cosmetics. Okay, so what I have underneath my eyes today is the Cover FX Power Play in, let me get the name, N Fair 1. I think I said that right. It's so cute. It looks like a little baby sized of the Power Play foundation. There's something that tickles me so much about this concealer. How much do you get in here? Oh, nice. This is the same size as Shape Tape, I think. It's 10 milliliters. Yeah, so you get a lot, which is great because some people use a lot of concealer. I don't. It doesn't really matter for me, but for people that use more concealer than I do, that's awesome. And it's easier to do kind of like concealer sheared out as foundation when you get a respectable amount of it, because that's 1/3 of an ounce, you know, that's not bad. I did buy this when it was 25% off in Cover FX friends and family sale here recently, and also got free shipping. So that's why I decided to pick this up. Same with Shape Tape. I got a deal, 50% off. It was like a platinum perk or something. So that's why I snagged that one. So, I feel like so far I've only used it twice. This actually works really well underneath my eyes. The coverage is really good. The finish seems to be good. I have extremely particularly fussy under eyes. I'm 38 years old. My skin is very solidly combination. I just started using Differin, so my skin is a little bit of a disaster right now, and we're going into winter, so it's like adjusting to drier air, plus I'm messing with it with Differin, and it's just kind of a mess right now, but I'm not doing anything like that underneath my eyes specifically. The Differin does not go under my eyes, but they're definitely a little drier with the cooler weather. And so far, I feel like I'm able to moisturize under there and then apply this, and it doesn't just kind of like slide off or immediately settle into all these weird little lines and not want to stick to the rest of my under eyes. You know, I have a hard time with under eye concealer, and so far this one really seems to sit nicely on my kind of crepey, confused, dehydrated, whatever under eyes. And I'm really happy, though I feel like this shade's going to be a little bit too yellow for some people who are very fair that are more solidly neutral than I am. I do have kind of that cool yellow undertone, so more cool yellow shades generally work well for me, and this one has enough color to it that I feel like it helps with my discoloration, whereas if I go something as light as like ColourPop with this formula does not work under my eyes, but ColourPop Fair 02 is like one step away from using white underneath my eyes, and it can look so gray. And that's the issue I have with a lot of these very fair concealers, is that they can look a little gray over my discoloration. Now you could say, just use a color corrector, but my under eyes are so finicky, and like everything will look so cakey and heavy and crepey and dry under there if I have any extra texture. So it's really challenging for me to get like the thinnest layer of a corrector under there in order to use a brighter concealer. I'm not really into highlighting under my eyes specifically. I feel like that looks kind of strange on me. I don't love it. I like it on other people, but not so much on my face. So I'm looking to just conceal the discoloration and also not be darker than the rest of my face. So Tarte Shape Tape in Fair I cannot wear alone underneath my eyes with a very fair foundation that matches my face. My best foundation matches are ColourPop No Filter Foundation in Fair 05, Clinique Even Better Foundation in Shell CN05, and the Smashbox Studio Skin Hydrating in 0.1. Those all match me quite well, and I feel like even under all these lights they don't look too white. I can wear a whole slew of other of these really fair foundations. Some look more natural than others. So I do like a little bit more of a yellow undertone, and I feel like that color is very good for me under my eyes with that Cover FX Power Play Concealer. Like I mentioned while I was doing the swatches, Shape Tape in Fair, whew, it dries probably like 3 or 4 shades darker than it goes on originally. It's craziness. And before, when I was just wearing darker foundations because that's all there was, I didn't really notice. But now that I have things that actually match my body, I will really notice how dark my under eyes look throughout the day. So that is a major frustration. I feel like the new shade isn't as fair as some of these, but it's better and it doesn't oxidize or darken nearly as much as Fair does. So that's a great improvement. I do enjoy the MAC Studio Fix Concealer. I feel like the coverage on this, it just feels a little bit more watery. You don't get quite as much coverage. If it had as much coverage as the Cover FX does, I feel like I would probably use it more because it would be easier to get it to sit on my face well. I like how it's a little bit more of a natural finish as opposed to matte. My under eyes can look pretty dry throughout the day, and I like how this can kind of smooth things in a way. It kind of makes it look a little bit plumper almost. It seems lovely, but I just can't use enough product without it like getting creasy. It's like I need to build up more product to get the coverage of the discoloration that I'm looking for, but then it gets all creasy because there's too much of it. The It Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye, I've never been able to get that concealer to wear well underneath my eyes. Whatever I set it with, it always ends up just like gathering up in my creases throughout the day, and then it's like the crease is set with a powder because it just kind of like moved and then set, and so you can't even like tap it out. Just that formula does not work well for me. Some days I feel like I can do the Makeup Forever HD Concealer okay, but it is one I have to set with a powder. Generally things that need a powder, I have my best luck with the Nars Light Reflecting Setting Powder Press. I prefer if I can get away with a concealer that doesn't need to be set, but that only works for me sometimes depending on how hydrated my under eyes are. It doesn't always work. So the Cover FX today, I do have it set with this Nars powder, and that's one that throughout the years has worked well for me under my eyes. It just doesn't add any texture, it doesn't add any sort of color, and it can give it a little bit more of a natural finish as opposed to like a totally matte finish. So I know I've heard people talk about how the Nyx HD Concealer is a good, very fair option. I mean, I have CW00 and it says Alabaster on here, and I just can't believe that this is what is supposed to be the lightest shade, because this is so orange. Like, it's like a color corrector. It's so orange, and I don't get it. I really don't get it. Another one that I use a lot, and I actually use it for eye primer quite a lot, is the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in C0.5. As you can see from the swatches, it's like pink. It's just straight pink. And sometimes a more pink shade can look kind of gray underneath my eyes, but I feel like this has enough coverage. It works okay for me. It's not my favorite finish. You know, I like something that has a little bit more of a natural finish, but it works pretty well for me under my eyes, and I really like it on my eyelids for kind of primer and concealing discoloration and veins and freckles and all that stuff that's on my eyelids that kind of detracts from how my eyeshadow looks. I've used the Nars quite a bit over the past year or so, the Chantilly, and the reason I hadn't bought this until now was because every time I swatched it in store, it seemed to oxidize a lot. I don't see it being as orangey as it would be when I swatched it in store, but it does definitely dry down a little bit darker, and it is not the lightest of the light, but I feel like it's still a good, fair option. If you're wearing one of the super fair shades though, it might not be quite as light as your foundation. So the ColourPop Fair 06, it is a little bit darker than the Very Fair foundation options. So I feel like I can wear this a little bit more easily under my eyes. Fair 02 just looks awful under my eyes. Fair 06 is a little bit better, but I don't know what's up with this formula. It's just not a great formula for me, and I don't know if you'll be able to see, but like it's separating and looking pretty busted in the tube here. So I don't know what's up with that, because the Makeup Revolution ones will be kind of, you know, floating around in the tube there, but you don't see where it's actually separating. You know, there might be gaps, but there's no like liquid that's noticeable in there. So that's kind of a bummer about the ColourPop. You know, I love that they have such a great shade range, but the formula, not good. Not good for me. The Sephora Bright Future Gel Serum, at the time when I got this, it was one of the lightest shades I had, but this formula just doesn't work for me. It's kind of like the It Cosmetics, where it will just kind of crease up on me no matter what kind of powder I use under there. It just doesn't ever really want to set, and so I don't really like it all that much, and now that it's not like super notable for being very fair, I just don't use it anymore, and will probably toss it sometime soon because it is kind of old. So if you're looking for something that is actually lighter than some of these extremely fair options of foundation that are out there right now, The ColourPop is the only thing that I have that really seems like straight up lighter than those foundations. If you want a more highlighted, brightening look, you could always mix in a white. I would definitely recommend the Revolution Conceal and Define over the BH. The BH, just, even if the formula worked better for me, it's just a really tough packaging. This cap just kind of like pops off and you get a lot of product out. It's got kind of a big hole. It's kind of liquidy. It's just a hassle to work with. And the only downside right now is that the Revolution Concealer is only available on their website. It's not on Ulta yet. I imagine at some point it will probably come to Ulta. I don't know. I believe the Cover FX also has a white, but I did not buy that just because I like the Revolution Concealer in white and I feel like it does the job. And I'm not looking to buy a high-end white concealer when I have that Revolution one. But yeah, I feel like there are several options here that are going to be as light as these Very Fair foundation shades. It just depends on what kind of formula works best for you. If you know that you want something more emollient that you can set with a powder like the It Cosmetics, you do get a lot of product in this, but the format is just kind of hard to use because you have to like squeeze it out of the tube, and it's really hard to get out. The MAC concealer, if you're not looking for full coverage, I think maybe is a good option if you want something that is a little bit more of a natural to satin finish. I feel like it's beautiful in the right situations. It's just, it doesn't always come through for me on the coverage I'm wanting with a thin enough layer that it's not moving around. Formula-wise, one that's always worked really well for me is the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer in NC15. That one is quite a bit darker than most of the things that I swatch here that are very fair, very pale, whatever. So that's why I did not include it, but I do really enjoy that formula. So if that formula works well for you without being set under your eyes, maybe you can take some helpful info from what also works under my eyes. Maybe, I don't know. Sometimes in the past, Shape Tape has worked okay for me without being set. Same with the Nars Creamy Concealer. But right in this moment, I'm having problems with those, wearing those without setting them or with setting them. They just look either too dry or they move around. I can't win. So right now I'm just looking for something that's a little bit less matte that I can set with a powder and be good to go. And so far the Cover FX is doing that for me. So if you want to see foundation swatches, I have a lot of foundation swatches. Every time I do a review, I swatch a ton of foundations to go along with it. I have a whole bunch of foundation reviews. I will do like a roundup of my fairest foundations, probably swatch video coming soon, just because I feel like that's something that could be a good starting point for a lot of people. And yeah, so I will link my foundation playlist, and I will also link my blog post that has these concealer swatches. And you can also browse around on my blog, and I have, every time I do a swatch, a collection of swatches and a foundation review, I also put it on the blog, so you could just kind of scroll through there and find potentially a foundation swatch that is useful to you. So I'll include all of that information. Let me know if you have any questions about the stuff I talked about today or anything else, just comments, whatever. I would love to hear from you below. If you want to see more videos from me, I do a lot of stuff about very fair skin, then subscribe. Please turn on notifications if you want to be notified. I would love to have you as a subscriber. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video today, leaving a comment, a like, subscribing. All that stuff means a lot to me. It helps out my channel so much. I really appreciate it. And I will have a few links below that will be affiliate links. If you shop from them and purchase something, then I will get a small commission. I so appreciate the support if you do decide to use one of my links. It makes it easier for me to buy more products that I can show on my channel. So yeah, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see you soon.